Hey, it's Patrick from JMP Cycles, and we're here with our 2012 Road King, and we're gonna put a set of Cobra PowerPort dual head pipes on this. Now, we already have our intake on here, and we have a set of Cobra mufflers on this also. The dual head pipes is our next step in performance. We have a great intake, we have a little bit of increased performance with the mufflers. The dual head pipes are going to really open this up and give it more of a tuned exhaust. And we're gonna work really well with the mufflers, really well with the intake. And all of these together, you'll notice a definite seat of the pants power increase. And as I always say, yes, you do need a fuel management system. Even a stock bike will benefit from that, but especially when you're modifying these air curves, letting a lot more air in. Now we're getting air out a lot quicker with our head pipe and our muffler. Definitely gonna need a fuel management tool on this. But let's get started. We're gonna go ahead and take our mufflers and our stock head pipe off, and we are gonna reuse these mufflers. So you could reuse your stock mufflers with this head pipe. I would advise against that. You're not gonna see the gain in performance that you see with both head pipes and mufflers. So first thing we're gonna have to do is take our floorboard off. Got a 5/16 Allen. We're gonna pull a couple of Allen bolts out here and just let this hang down. Then we're gonna take our bags off, of course, and then remove our mufflers. Save the hardware from the mufflers, save the clamps, save the little brackets in the back. We're gonna reuse all that stuff. After that, we get that stuff off, then we'll get the head pipe off. Okay, so our floorboard's out of the way, bags are off, mufflers off. Now we gotta take the bracket loose that holds the crossover that goes under the bike, and that's on the back of the oil pan. Now, save the hardware back there, but ditch the bracket. We're gonna use a new bracket, we're gonna reuse our hardware. Then we're gonna pull the head pipe off of the heads, and again, we're gonna recycle some stuff. We're gonna need to get our O2 sensors out of there, because we're gonna put them in our new head pipe, and the exhaust flanges off of here, we're gonna pull those off and reuse those on our new head pipe as well. So we'll get to work, we'll get that bracket off, saving the hardware, and then we'll get this head pipe off here. So like I said, we're gonna need to reuse our O2 sensors in here. So we need to unplug those and clip the wire ties off so we can take them out. And they're located, the plugins are located underneath the side panel, which just pops right off. Then here are the plugs to the O2 sensors, black to black, gray to gray. Make sure you put these back where they go. Wherever you get the sensor from, put it back in that location, and I'll show you that when we get farther in the head pipes. Right now we're gonna unplug these, clip our wire ties so we can take these out of the head pipe once we get the head pipe loose. We have one last clamp here before we can get up here to the heads. The deep well 9/16 is what you're gonna need to take this loose. Once that's loose, then we can take the pipe loose from the heads. When we take the exhaust flange nuts off, make sure you save those too. We'll reuse the exhaust flanges and the flange nuts. I like to use a 1/4-inch drive, 1/2-inch socket when I'm taking these exhaust flange nuts off. One nice thing, especially on the front, is if you have a little wobble piece like this, it allows it to work at a little bit of an angle, and it's a little easier than just using a straight arm. You can still get it with a straight extension, but it's easier if you have this little wobble. We got our head pipe off, and one thing we're gonna lose is all this weight of this cat, and open this up and really let it breathe. So we're gonna wanna pull these O2 sensors out here. This one with the black plug is the one to your rear head pipe, and the one with the gray plug is to your front head pipe. And it's really important that you put those back the same, because the engine is reading them as the front and the rear, so they need to go back in those locations. We also need to take these flanges off, and you gotta take this little snap ring off here. If you don't have big snap ring pliers, you can do it with a flathead screwdriver like I'm gonna do, but it's also a really good way to stab yourself in the hand. So be careful. Sometimes I can push them off like this, yeah. Look at that. Need the tools? Got man paws. So the next thing we need to do is remove the stock bracket from underneath the transmission down here and put our new bracket on. So we need a 1/4-inch Allen. This bracket kind of can only go on there one way, but it goes on just like this. Then we're gonna take out our old exhaust gaskets and replace them with some new exhaust gaskets. Highly recommend this. These things are only a few bucks. The last thing you want to do is put this whole thing on here and have an exhaust leak. So we'll get our new bracket on, we'll get our new exhaust gaskets on, and then we'll start putting the head pipe on. Okay, so we have our front head pipe here. We're going to put our O2 sensor in it. The front one has the gray plug. We're going to put that in, and then we're going to put our exhaust flange on. You put this exhaust flange on one side of the exhaust flange is a little groove. You want that side to go up. So the exhaust flange will go on like that, and then we're going to clip this, the clip right over the top of it. It'll sit in that groove. So we're gonna reuse our old flange nuts. We're gonna put this on here, but we're just gonna leave it finger tight. We're not gonna tighten it up just yet. So the flange nuts are on finger tight. Now we need to slide this clamp on here. Make sure the side with the square hole is up. So there's two sides to this, and this carriage bolt is going to drop down through there. It needs that square hole to hold it steady, so when you put the nut on the bottom, it'll stay in one spot. We're going to slide this over the exhaust. You may have to flex it open a little, and then make sure it slides over our brand new bracket. We're going to put the carriage bolt down through there, and we're going to start the lock nut, put the washer on. We'll start the lock nut, but don't tighten it up. And then we're going to go ahead and route our wire from our O2 sensor back up to where it needs to go and plug it in. We're not going to zip tie it up yet because we're going to want the second one in there before we zip tie it. We're going to go ahead and route it and plug it in just so it's out of the way. We're going to take our rear head pipe, which is the short piece here. We're going to thread our O2 sensor into it. The rear one has the black plug, and then we're going to put our flange on this one the same way we did the front. We're going to put it on the rear head, just finger tight, and then we're going to route the rear O2 sensor wire back up and plug it in as well. Okay, so now we're gonna put on our crossover piece here, and we have to put these clamps on first. You're gonna wanna put the bolt part of the clamp where you're gonna tighten it. On the top one, you want the bolt facing up so you can access it, and on the bottom one, you want it facing down. So the benefit to this pipe here is it looks like true duals, but it has this crossover that's hidden right here. This crossover is very important because it helps gives you that mid-range power. So even though this looks like true duals, it operates a lot like a 2-into-1 and gives you good mid-range grunt. So we're gonna slide this on here. And after we get this slid on here, we're gonna go underneath and we're gonna mount this crossover bracket to the back of our transmission pan using the 3 bolts we took off earlier. We're gonna reuse those bolts. We're gonna mount this to the transmission pan and then the crossover bolts to it. So let's get to work. We're gonna go ahead and put the mufflers back on. Make sure you put the right muffler on the right side, left muffler on the left side. You can tell that from these cutouts right here. This is the right muffler, got the shock cut out right here. So we're just gonna finger tight again these mufflers, just gonna barely run them down, and then we're gonna go back through and start tightening things up. So after this, we're gonna go to our crossover bracket, we're gonna tighten up the 2 Allen screws, then we're gonna move up to the exhaust flanges, tighten that up, and then we're gonna tighten the carriage bolt, and then our clamps to our crossover pipe. We're gonna tighten in that pattern and we'll walk you through it. So we're gonna tighten our crossover bracket underneath here first. Want to make sure that when you tighten it up, the crossover pipe isn't pressing up against the transmission pan. From there, we're gonna tighten up our flange nuts up here on the head. We're gonna come down here, tighten up this carriage bolt on our new bracket off the transmission, and then we'll tighten these clamps up here that are holding the crossover to the head pipes. Now that we got these clamps tight, we can go ahead and button up our O2 sensor wires. I'm just gonna zip tie them off so they're out of the way. And then we still have our mufflers loose, but we're gonna go ahead and put on our heat shields before we tighten up our mufflers. And that's so we can get a nice alignment right here with the heat shield when we're done. Before we put our heat shields on here, we're gonna go ahead and put the clamps on. And a couple of things I like to do. One, I put the clamp through, as you can see, I put a little bit of a extra bend on the end here. That way, when you go to connect them when it's on the pipe, they go together a little easier on that worm clamp. The other thing we need to do is pay attention to which way you put these clamps into these heat shields. The instructions gives you the pointer on how to put them in there, but I'll give you the gist of it. Basically on this bottom pipe, we're gonna want them all pointing down so we can get to them. And on this top pipe here, we're gonna want these two pointing up and this one pointing in so we can get to them to tighten them up. Once we figure out that we're gonna have the right amount of distance here, no gap, we'll make sure our mufflers are lined up at the end, then we can tighten this clamp, tighten our muffler bolts, and then tighten the heat shield back on there. Then all we're gonna have to do is put on our floorboard and go for a ride. So let's get these heat shields on here. So I got my heat shield just kind of snugged up, but this is what we're looking for right here, is this nice transition from muffler to heat shield. So now that I know I got it in a good spot, I'm gonna tighten the muffler clamp. I'm gonna tighten these bolts back up here. I'm gonna finish tightening my heat shield. I'll do the same thing to the short heat shield on the other side. And don't forget to make sure your mufflers are lined up back there. All right, so we have all of our heat shields on, mufflers tightened up. Now we need to put our floorboard back on, but we need to space it out a little, and it comes with 2 spacers. This one with 2 holes here goes in the back and over the peg that's on the bracket, and then the really thick washer that we have goes in the front. So after we get the floorboard back on, we're gonna make sure we wanna wipe all of our fingerprints off this exhaust, because when you start it up and it heats up, it'll burn those fingerprints into your chrome. So get it good and clean, we'll get the bags on, we'll fire this up and listen to it. All right, got her all buttoned back up, got our bags on, got our side panel back on. As always, if you guys have any questions about this, feel free to comment in the comment section below. You can always chat with us online or even call us on our 800 number. Now, let's see what this bad boy sounds like.